Welcome back, True Seeker. The big news this morning: Pope Francis dead at 88. And earlier this year, we talked about why it would make a lot of sense if he did die at age 88. Of course, on Valentine's Day, he was hospitalized, and days after, the media was reporting that he was on his deathbed and his time was near. And now, on April 21st, Easter Monday, another big Catholic day, he's reportedly gone. And just yesterday, they showed him meeting with J.D. Vance at the Vatican. He seemed like he wasn't on the doorstep of death. But let's go over this because, again, it's just so obvious what has happened here. It's just so obvious. It's so obvious and it's so painful that the world does not know what's taking place. Today is the 111th day of the year, okay? 111, April 21st, the day that Pope Francis goes down in the history books as dead. It is the 111th day of the year. His name in the Kabbalistic practice of coding numbers into words, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, equates to 111. These things are not an accident. Rewind back to his birthday on 2021 when the Warriors of San Francisco, where the Church of Satan was founded. And we're going to get to this because the 9 days of mourning is going to end on the Church of Satan's 59th birthday when Pope Francis is also Mr. 59. In the same way Jorge Mario Bergoglio equates to 111, Pope Francis equates to 59. And don't forget that Benedict stepped down on the 59th day of the year for Francis. Eventually, Benedict would die on New Year's Eve at age 95. He was a German like Martin Luther, who wrote the 95 Theses, which brought about the Jesuits, who were recognized by the church on the day leaving 95 days left in the year. Of course, Pope Francis goes down as the first Jesuit pope. But we're going to get to how this death connects with the Church of Satan's 59th birthday, which will be the last day of mourning before they begin to elect the new pope. I've been saying for years that it's very obvious the Jesuits are who are behind the Church of Satan, and we're going to bring it all together. But I do want to go back to this point about 111 and the Pope, and one of the biggest examples we ever gave you years ago. If you go back to his birthday, Pope Francis's, December 17th, 2021. Again, Pope Francis has the Saturnalia birthday. Look at the San Francisco basketball team, what they did that day before they went on to win the finals over Boston. Again, this might seem complicated if you're new here, but the Jesuits, the Catholic Church, they run pretty much everything. They run all the rigged sports leagues. They run this nation's government. They run its news media, and they do it all by this Kabbalistic code of letters and numbers, and you can prove it every single day. It's not just hyperbole or some conspiracy theory nonsense. It's provable fact, and that's why we nailed the finals that year dead on with one take after what happened on the Pope's birthday. But here, I'll just pull up the box score right here so you can see it. Warriors box score December 17th, 2021. You'll see they beat the Celtics with 111 points on the Pope's birthday. I actually want this on ESPN so I can show you greater detail. I want you to see how the Warriors became 10-3 away and Celtics fell to 7-5 at home. You might recall that was the 75th anniversary season. The Warriors had a huge 75 on their court all year. The Warriors eventually beat the Celtics in the finals that year, and they improved to 7-5 in championships, and the Celtics fell to 17-5 in finals. It was their 22nd appearance in 2022 when Boston and basketball equal 22. But Pope Francis and Golden State both equal 175. Like the Celtics fell to 17-5. The 7-5 matters because Catholic Church equals 75, so does Roman Catholic. And the Warriors winning 10-3 or becoming 10-3 away in that game is important too, because Jesuits equals 103, Ultimate Warrior equals 103. The Warriors won the finals, knocking out Boston with 103 points, and Ultimate Warrior, the wrestler, he was born June 16th. That's the day that the Warriors closed out the Celtics. On the Ultimate Warrior's birthday, another athlete who died prematurely at age 54 when Jesuit order equates to 54, and the Jesuit headquarters is the Church of the Jesus Building 54. We're going to get to how connected this is to Donald Trump, Jesuit educated, as well as J.D. Vance, because the Pope's dead 54 days before Trump's birthday. And this is what I told you at the beginning of the year. I said why it would make sense for the Pope to die at age 88 in light of Trump Mr. 88 himself, who went to Fordham, the Jesuit 88 University, being the center of the world stage yet again. So, yeah, maybe it's a little bit complicated to understand, but realize the NBA playoffs are getting underway. The Jesuits are highly connected to the world of sports. Again, the front runner in the NBA to win the finals right now is what we call the 88 team. We're just going to bring it all together here. But understand, all of this stuff is not by accident. And if you think it's some kind of coincidence, well, it's probably because you're religious and you've been indoctrinated into religion, which automatically makes people dumber and dumber and dumber the further they get into it. And again, you can blame the Catholic Church for what they've done to humanity. They've lost their critical thinking skills. All they do is believe in bullshit. Again, that's not what we do over here. We prove our point every day in spades. Jorge Mario Bergoglio, dead on the 111th day of the year. So, today can be written 21/4, as it is in the majority of the world. What day was the Pope hospitalized? Was it on Valentine's Day? Was it on February 14th, another 214 day? Notice how the Republican Party is 214 when you run the alphabetic order, and 88 when you run the alphabetic order with numerology. Again, if you're new here, we're going to go over the 4 base ciphers of the English language. I learned about this in a book that's nearly 100 years old that was published in 1926. That was even 10 years before the Pope was born. Pope Francis, born in 36. But again, The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall lays out this system of numbers behind the English language. Again, this practice of coding numbers into words goes back to Hebrew, Aramaic, ancient Greek, all the biblical languages. Kabbalah, in its Book of Formation, it states God created the world with numbers, letters, and words. This practice is spiritual. It's related to Kabbalah. It's Jewish mysticism. And just for the record, Jewish equates to 88 as well. Again, in the time of the Protestant Reformation, there was a merger of the Catholics and the Jews because Martin Luther targeted both religions. That's why there's a lot of Jewish influence within the Jesuits. But notice, in the base ciphers are intuitive. The alphabetic order, the reverse alphabetic order. The alphabetic order with numerology, the reverse alphabetic order with numerology. Think about Trump. Gets reinstalled in Jesuit-controlled D.C. while the Pope is 88. Trump equals 25 in that same cipher, felon. He becomes the first felon president in 2025. As we'll get to, Pope and Vatican equal 25 in that same cipher. We just had the first Super Bowl 58 on the Vatican's birthday. Keep in mind, Pope Francis became a Jesuit in 58. The winning score was 25. The losing score was 22, a total of 47 points. Vatican equals 25 and 47, as we'll get to. But notice, Trump 88, the Pope's 88. Trump 25, like Pope and Vatican in the same cipher. Trump 47 in reverse. Vatican and Francis equal 47. Trump 29 in reverse with numerology applied. If Trump finishes his term, or at least makes it to the 4th year of his term, it would be 2029, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? So, we're going to come back to this 214 thing and how it connects to the Church of Satan, which Donald Trump runs on Mega, the highest degree of the Church of Satan. We're going to put it all together here. And the base ciphers, notice how Pope, Vatican, Francis, notice how they overlap. Vatican and Francis, a perfect overlap in 3 out of the 4 ciphers. Consider that right now in the U.S., the Jesuit-controlled U.S., we're in the time of the 119th Congress. Notice, from J.D. Vance's birthday to the death of the Pope, one day after he meets him, is the 263rd day of J.D. Vance's age, the 56th prime number. Notice how Pope, when you run the alphabetic order in reverse, is 56, just like Society of Jesus. That's the formal title of the Jesuits, just like Washington, D.C. Of course, when you run it forwards, Pope is 52. We have a 52-week calendar named after a Pope. Again, the calendar that says the Pope has died on April 21st, 2025, that calendar came from the Jesuit priest Christopher Clavius. Okay, so Pope, Vatican, right after the meeting of J.D. Vance, who was at the Vatican on April 19th, which is the anniversary of Ignatius of Loyola becoming the first superior general of the Jesuits, and then he was with the Pope yesterday, April 20th, Hitler's birthday, with all the stuff going on with this administration and the ties to the SS, and also Easter. We talked about how J.D. Vance became a Catholic 68 months and days earlier. Easter equals 68, like Catholicism, like mathematics, like solar system, like Helios. Again, the Catholic Church worships Helios or the sun. Consider with regards to 68, caskets go 6 feet deep and are 8 feet long. Donald John Trump also has that 68 connection. Trump compared himself to Jesus Christ himself 2 years ago during Passover. But yes, the 263rd day of J.D. Vance's age, the 56 prime. And then here's the Church of Satan piece. Church of Satan in the base ciphers, 56. In that same cipher, Society of Jesus, 56. Church of Satan, 214, like the Republican Party. And don't call it a coincidence. Remember, in 2000, the GOP changed their logo. The 3 stars on the elephant, they were upwards pointing stars. In 2000, the year that we got Bush, the second, King George the second, they inverted the stars to downwards pointing stars. And a downwards pointing star, a 5-pointed star, is a satanic symbol. These things aren't an accident. Notice, Church of Satan, 214, 70, 56. Do you see these numbers up here? Vatican and Francis, 76. Pope, 56. We're going to go back to the founder of the Church of Satan, Anton LaVey, who established it in San Francisco, a city named after St. Francis of Assisi, just like Pope Francis. But first, there's this. From him being hospitalized, the Pope, on Valentine's Day to his death today is a span of 67 days. Satanic equals 67. Easter Monday equals 67. Human sacrifice equals 67. Blood sacrifice equals 67. Soul equals 67. How old was the founder of the Church of Satan when he died? Do you remember how old Anton LaVey was? He was 67. We're going to bring it together even further here in just a moment. By the way, the movie that got all the attention that was nominated for so many awards for the Oscars, Conclave, about the death of the Pope, that movie came out October 25th last year, the day leaving 67 days in the year. And remember, in the days leading up to the Oscars, where it was one of the front runners to win a whole bunch, that's when all the headlines were going on about how the Pope was on his deathbed. He was about to die. That was going on at the same time they were promoting the Oscars in this movie Conclave. And again, it's not an accident. The same people that run Hollywood, run your news, run your government, run your sports leagues, and they do it all ritualistically. All ritualistically. So yeah, you get 9 days of mourning when the Pope dies. 9 days from today will be April 30th, which will be the Church of Satan's 59th birthday. Again, Pope Francis completed his first year with the Jesuits in 59. Benedict stepped down on the 59th day of the year for Francis. The 59th U.S. presidential selection, we told you guys a long time in advance why Joe Biden would be elected number 46, exactly 46 weeks after the Pope's birthday, after he sacrificed his son Beau Biden at 46, perfectly synced with the Pope. We'll again talk about that. But notice the values of Pope Francis, 122. In that same cipher, San Francisco equates to 122. San Francisco also sits on the 122nd meridian. The word satanic also equates to 122. And just for the record, so does abortion, and that's why Roe v. Wade was decided on January 22nd, 122, 122 days after Jane Roe's September 22nd birthday. Not an accident. The other year when they overturned Roe v. Wade on modern Freemasonry's birthday and John the Baptist's birthday, baptisms, babies. Remember, the memo leak that they were going to overturn it happened on May 2nd, the 122nd day of the year, by Catholic Jesuit-educated Sam Alito, who was big in the news for Easter as well. But yeah, Pope Francis equals 122, like San Francisco, the home of the Church of Satan. Again, San Francisco is named after St. Francis of Assisi. St. Francis of Assisi created the Franciscans, which were the precursor to the Jesuits. Pope Francis, with numerology applied, 59. Again, the day of mourning is going to end on the 59th birthday of the Church of Satan. Just think about that. Just think about that. And think about how many years I've been here telling you it's very obvious that the Jesuits are behind the Church of Satan. And that's why they have all these perfect rituals with Trump and MAGA, the highest degree of the Church of Satan, and a million other things, including the death of Anton LaVey. When you run it in reverse, Pope Francis, 175. When you run it in reverse with numerology, Pope Francis 58. Again, he became a Jesuit in 58. Freemasonry equals 58. Secret Society 58. Solomon's Temple 58. Rosicrucian 58. Catholics aren't allowed to be Freemasons, but Pope Francis, you can look at the image of him doing the hidden hand Masonic pose. For the record, Freemasonry equals 58 and 59 like Pope Francis. From modern Freemasonry's creation to the establishment of the United States of America, a big fat... but just all these numbers they're all over history. Just never mind. We'll just stick with Pope Francis. Also, look at the photo yesterday of J.D. Vance and the Cardinal, or from 2 days ago. J.D. Vance and the Cardinal. They did show him doing the Masonic handshake. For all of you Catholics who think Freemasonry is not part of Catholicism, they're putting it right in your face that it is. Pope Francis with the hidden hand. Again, what you just saw over the weekend with J.D. Vance and the Cardinal, all of these secret societies are connected behind the scenes. And look at how many of the rites of Freemasonry were written by Jesuit priests. Okay, so again, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, the base ciphers of the Pope's birth name. 201. Remember, the last French Pope was the 201st Pope. The Jesuits were created in France. Ignatius of Loyola, the founder. Ignatius of Loyola equals 201 in the same way. The Jesuit order equates to 201. There's a long history of 201 in the Jesuits. They were preserved by Catherine the Great in the time of the Jesuit suppression with 201 priests in Russia. When Martin Luther penned the 95 Theses, it brought about the Jesuits who were created 201 months later. Again, Pope Francis is the first Jesuit pope and the first to live in Suite 201 at the Vatican. In the U.S., inauguration has been moved to the Jesuit capital, D.C. Inauguration Day has been moved to the 201st day of the nation's age. When Beau Biden died at 46, before Joe Biden was elected 46 weeks excuse me. Before Joe Biden was elected 46 weeks, or Joe Biden was elected 46 weeks after the Pope's birthday. Again, Beau Biden died 201 days before the Pope's birthday. The Jesuit priest who did Beau Biden's funeral also did the inauguration for Joe Biden. That's Leo Jeremiah O'Donovan. In the same name, his name equals 201. Again, he was the former head of Georgetown. More recently, Donald Trump, go back to July 14, 2022, the day his ex-wife died, 45 years after their marriage. And don't forget that, in light of how this is all synced with Trump, the Pope was hospitalized on the 45th day of the year, Valentine's Day. But when Trump's ex-wife died, she was the third headline that day related to Trump. The first was that Trump came out and said he'd run in the next election, which was the 60th. Then there were conservatives against Trump based on 60 legal cases against Trump. And then there was the death of Trump's ex-wife. And when she died, it was exactly 60 weeks into the first ever Jesuit Ignatian year. Donald Trump equals 60. He went on to win the rigged 60th election, which just happened, and then takes office while the Pope's 88. But about the 201, his wife was buried on July 20th, 2022, the 201st day of the year. So 201, huge Jesuit number, encoded in the name of the first Jesuit Pope. 111, they've done a lot of rituals with the Pope in 111, now dead on the 111th day of the year. When you run the alphabetic order in reverse, it's 312. How many electoral votes did Trump get? Remember, he got 312, and he defeated Kamala, who had her DNC in Chicago, the 312 area code, and they had to announce the death of Candyman, the actor Tony Todd, when the movie's set in Chicago, the day that they called it for Trump. Kamala, she spoke on the anniversary of Huey P. Newton's death, the leader of the Black Panthers. Her father was friends with Huey P. Newton. Again, the convention's in Chicago where the feds assassinated another Black Panther, Fred Hampton. The 105 matters because Masonry equals 105, as does Order of Illuminati. Order of Illuminati also equates to 201, and the Order of Illuminati was created by the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt, who had plans to infiltrate Freemasonry. So for any Catholic out there who's going, no, Masonry's not allowed with Catholicism. Again, a Jesuit founded the Illuminati who had plans to infiltrate Freemasonry. You can't see how all this would have come together over the course of the last few hundred years. Because it has, and here it is being exposed again today for almost 12 years straight as I've been here every day, grinding away. Now look at this. From the chump's birthday, Jesuit educated at Fordham. Fordham's the 88 Jesuit University. Trump is Mr. 88. From Trump's birthday to the death of the Pope, 311 days. Where's 311 tie in with 201? Look, 201 is the number 311 in base 8 counting. We talked about this with Event 201, the pandemic simulation that began the same day the military World Games began in Wuhan, China. And then the pandemic being declared on March 11th, 311, after the Event 201 Jesuit simulation. Companies like Moderna made a killing. Look into who founded Moderna. 2 Jesuits, and one of them was born on the 201st day of the year. These things aren't an accident. You learn this code, you see what's going on. And just about this whole Church of Satan piece, again, Trump runs on MAGA, which is the highest degree of the Church of Satan. Anton LaVey, he's got that Chicago connection too. He's from the 312, died in San Francisco. Notice, from his birthday to his death was 201 days. Died on October 29th, just before Halloween. He died 201 days after his birthday. And the sitting pope at the time was John Paul II. From LaVey's death to the Pope's upcoming birthday was 201 days. And I forgot to mention that Catholic Pope equals 201 as well. Just like Domus Sanctae Marte equates to 201, and Pope Francis is the first Jesuit Pope, the first to live in Suite 201 in the Domus Sanctae Marte. And that building was originally a hospital built in tribute to Pope Leo, who died on the 201st day of the year. Again, none of these things are an accident. None of these things are an accident. Yeah, for anyone who ever doubted what I was saying about the Church of Satan, LaVey's death, the Jesuits, I mean, tell me about it now. Tell me about it now. The last day of mourning is going to be on the 59th birthday of the Church of Satan. After all these 59s, again, we told you way in advance why the 59th election was going to Biden. We explained way back when why Benedict stepped down on the 59th day of the year. I learned. It's kind of funny looking back because Pope Francis became the first Jesuit Pope March 13th, 2013. And for the person who's new here, that's the 72nd day of the year. Let's go over the Gematria Jesuit Order. Jesuit Order has the 72 connection, as does President Trump, as does President Biden. But notice, Jesuit Order, let's just go through these ciphers. 144, huge number with the Jesuits, the biblical number, the 144,000 chosen. Again, in history, recent history, RFK dead at 144 in the morning. JFK dead 144 days after meeting the Pope on 7/2. The Jesuit headquarters is the Church of the Gesù, Building 54 in Italy. Jesuit Order, when you run the alphabetic order in reverse, 153. Miraculous catch of fish. The Illuminati equals 153. When you run it in reverse, 72. And with regards to the Illuminati connection, because again, the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt founded the Illuminati. Notice, the Illuminati is 153. It was founded in Bavaria, which is 54 forwards and backwards. And today, if it's 311 days after Trump's birthday, where did he go? That means it's 54 days to his upcoming birthday, right? 311 plus 54 is 365, the days in a year. You can see the 10 months and 7 days as well. Ritual sacrifice is 107. You can see the 44 weeks. Trump is the 44th person to be president. That's because Grover Cleveland had a split term. The word kill equals 44. The word execution equals 44. This 67 list I put up here about the Pope dying 67 days from his hospitalization, I forgot to mention that Italy equals 67 as well. It's another 67 that fits in here. Italy's got the 68 like Easter. You see how Easter is also 94? Do you remember when the Pope went to the Vatican on the 144th day of the year, May 24, 2017? It's 94 months and days since he posed with the Pope. 94 months and days. And again, Easter's got the 68. We're going to get to how it's exactly 23 weeks into the Superior General's age, the Black Pope. Again, such a perfectly coordinated ritual here for the death of Pope Francis. And here's another kicker. From Pope Francis becoming Pope to his death, 145 months and 8 days. Now remember, there are 145 more chapters in the Catholic Old Testament. than the Protestant Old Testament, 145. And this is why Israel was created on 14/5. State of Israel equals 201. Jesuit fingerprints all over the establishment of Israel. Again, 46 books in the Catholic Old Testament. Remember, the war in Israel began on Putin's 71st birthday, 71 days before the Pope's birthday. You think of Catholicism in this country, JFK, number 35, the first Catholic president killed on I-35 at age 46. Joe Biden, the second Catholic president, number 46, elected 46 weeks after the Pope's birthday, inaugurated on the Pope's 35th day of his age. From the Jesuit birthday, the day that they were created by Ignatius Loyola, August 15th, 1534 in Paris, France. From that day to today is 35 weeks and days later. The Superior General Arturo Sosa, born November 12th, from his birthday to today, or excuse me, well, we'll get to today, but from his birthday to the Pope's birthday, they were 35 days apart. And don't forget that the other thing about 35 is Holy See equals 35, the areas the Catholic Church holds. Jesuitism is 35. The word I is 35. Holy See. Catholic Church got eyes on the world. Genesis 3:5 about the eyes of God. So, yeah, they have to mention that in Francis' last days, one of the last things he did was met with J.D. Vance. And, okay, look at this. Again, he met with the J.D. Vance on the 110th day of the year, right? President equals 110. Is this foreshadowing of where J.D. Vance is going, who recently converted to Catholicism? Remember, that was Small Mustache Man's birthday, and his name also equals 110, and he supposedly offed himself at age 56. And you see the 56 and 187 in his name? Look at Society of Jesus. Same thing, 56, 187. The SS was modeled after the Jesuits. You can notice the overlap with his name in Washington, D.C. as well, the Jesuit stronghold, where the capital was moved to, where Inauguration Day was moved to. But the day before that was the 109th day of the year. And again, that was the day that J.D. Vance met with number 2 in command at the Vatican, the top cardinal. And that's Ignatius Loyola Day, the anniversary of Ignatius Loyola becoming the first superior general of the Jesuits. Remember, again, predictive programming. The Trump assassination hoax, by the numbers, July 13th, 2024. 2 days later, the convention began in Milwaukee, and J.D. Vance was named the VP nominee. That matters because J.D. Vance was the youngest VP nominee since Teddy Roosevelt, who again was shot in Milwaukee. He was shot after McKinley was assassinated in Buffalo. Remember, the fireman who was killed, his name had he was a firefighter for the Buffalo Fire Department in Pennsylvania. McKinley was assassinated in Buffalo as the 25th president. Here we are in 2025. In 2025, Trump 25 in the same cipher, felon. And now this ritual with the Pope at the Vatican, right after J.D. Vance. I think they're going to make history repeat itself. Again, Trump renamed Mount Denali Mount McKinley. It was Obama who changed it to Denali. And remember, it was Obama on the 45th birthday of the Church of Satan, April 30th, 2011. He was having the White House Correspondents' Dinner that night, and he invited Trump, and Trump was there. And Obama told the joke about how Trump will become number 45 on, again, the 45th birthday of the Church of Satan. Not to mention the Church of Satan's birthday is always 45 days before Trump's June 14th birthday. But again, the highest degree of the Church of Satan is mega. And you know what? Every time I do a video and I don't say this, people leave a comment like, prove that it's the highest degree of the Church of Satan. When you guys are out there doing that, do you not, I mean, if you're watching me, you obviously have access to the internet. Have you ever just thought about like doing a web search? Is mega the highest degree of the Church of Satan? Let's just see what happens if you ask Jesuit-controlled Google. In the Church of Satan, the highest rank is megas. Yeah, mega/megas. This is the 5th degree, which makes sense because they're associated with the 5-pointed pentagram. And think about your Pentagon in D.C., your nation's killing department, always killing brown people in unjust wars. Trump's holds the gold medal for most drone bombings ever on brown people. It says, what happens now? Francis' death prompts a period of mourning after which all cardinals under the age of 80 will convene to pick the next leader of the Catholic Church. Here's the one other thing I want to say. The Jesuits part of the reason they were suppressed in history, and by the way, 201 days passed in the year before the Pope suppressed them. But part of the reason they were suppressed was because there were rumors of Jesuit murders, and the Jesuits' accused way of killing was poisoning people with arsenic. And if you remember the 33-day Pope, the shortest Pope in history, he went to bed on September 27th, the anniversary of the Jesuits being recognized by the Roman Catholic Church, the day leaving 95 days left in the year, when their original mission was to counter the 95 Theses. And they eventually killed Martin Luther at age 46. I think they say Martin Luther died from the flu. Highly doubtly, in light of him dying on the 46th day of the year. But again, the 33-day Pope went to bed on the Jesuit birthday and never woke up. A lot of people believe that he was poisoned with arsenic. Notice how arsenic poisoning and poison both equate to 88. And for the record, arsenic, here, let me just show you this. Arsenic is the 33rd element on the periodic table, and arsenic also equals 33. So the 33-day Pope, believed to have been killed with arsenic. Could they have taken out the first Jesuit Pope the same way? I talked about this at the beginning of the year, why I thought Pope Francis would die at 88 in tribute to Trump. Their favorite Jesuit pawn on the chessboard. And notice, from Arturo Sosa's birthday, remember he turned 76, and then 2 days after his 76th birthday, the headline broke that Trump was the first Republican candidate to ever get 76 million votes. Donald John Trump. 76. 1776. Donald John Trump, 185 and 68, like Catholicism, like mathematics, like solar system. Well, solar system 68, again, like Helios, like coming back to Easter. But yeah, exactly 23 weeks into the Superior General's age, Pope Francis is dead on Easter Monday. Easter 23, end of the Pope 23. Again, from this photo right here, from May 24, 2017, it's 94 months and days. Again, Easter 94, like Roman Catholic Church. And for anyone going, how do they have all this synced up? They're a well-oiled machine. Again, this was thousands of years in the making. This didn't happen overnight. The Jesuits are responsible for the calendar and the language. They built a system. This is how they choose their puppet leaders in the areas they control worldwide for their planned rituals. I just want to remind about this too. Pope Francis speaking in D.C. on September 23rd, 2015, the 266th day of the year is the 266th Pope. Remember, the Jesuit motto is Su Hominum Salvator. It equates to 274th, the alphabetic order. The Roman Catholic Church has celebrated the Son's birthday since 274 AD on 1225 as Sol Invictus. Sol Invictus equals Catholic in two ways, just for the record. Sol Invictus, 7146, just like Catholic. It equates to 85, which is interesting because, again, basketball equals 85. The first March Madness was the Catholic school over the Jesuit school in 1985. You look at what they did this year. This year, major Jesuit ritual. The winner of March Madness, which we called before the tournament began, why Todd Golden would win on 4-7 in Trump's golden age. He won the championship 274 days after his birthday, and he got Florida their 54th all-time win in the tournament, Jesuit Order 54, just like Sun. IHS for Su Hominum Salvator are the letters inside the sun, you see? So, again, just going through this. And remember, Pope's dead right at the time that the NBA playoffs are getting underway. I'm going to show you one last thing that's a trip. But in reverse, it's 266. The first Jesuit Pope is the 266th Pope in the history of the church. And by the way, there's an old prophecy from the Catholic Church that the last Pope would be the 266th. What's interesting is if that prophecy is not true and there is another Pope, the next one will be the 267th, which is the Philadelphia area code. And they do a lot of rituals here in the U.S. with Philadelphia in 267. Philadelphia, though, in the Bible gets the letter. The Church of Philadelphia gets the letter about the synagogue of Satan, those who claim to be Jews but are not. Jewish is 88. So we're going to see how this works out here. Anyhow, 122. Remember, Pope Francis equals 122, like San Francisco, like satanic. In case you need to see it here. San Francisco, 122. Pope Francis, 122. Satanic, 122. Again, San Francisco on the 122nd meridian. Do you recall the death of Kobe Bryant while traveling from Catholic Mass on a Sunday? From Kobe's death to this death is we're in the 274th week since Kobe died. Kobe and his daughter were 41 and 13 for 54. Kobe Bean Bryant died the Sunday before Super Bowl 54, the Joe Montana Bowl. Gianna Bryant, 54. Also 126, like they died on 126. Gianna Bryant also 72, like Jesuit order. Sun equals 54. The sun moves 1 degree on the astrological wheel every 72 years. Pope Francis, the first Jesuit pope, on the 72nd day of the year. But yeah, Kobe Bryant, again, in 2017, I wrote a book way before he died about how all this stuff was going back to the church and the Jesuits. But I showed how Kobe's career was defined by the number 41. Kobe, dead at 41 on the Pope's 41st day of his age, traveling from Catholic Mass. It also had a lot to do with Trump being the winner of the 58th election in Trump's last year in office. Kobe died on the 157th day of his age. They said it was an accident. There's a whole lot more to it. I wrote a book about it. You see the 59 thing, too, going with the Pope. But yeah, here's the kicker. The NBA playoffs just got underway, right? And year after year, they sync up the pro sports with the man in the Oval Office, the Pope. They've done this a million times. Do you remember when Trump first became president? You had Jesuit-educated Matt Ryan give up the 25-point lead on February 5th. Remember that, to Brady, who got to kiss the Pope's hand? That was Pope John Paul II, though. But Falcons equals 25, Pope equals 25, Trump equals 25. Go back and look. That's the only Super Bowl the Pope ever blessed. The Pope blessed Super Bowl 51 on 2-5 with Jesuit-educated Matt Ryan, who went to Boston College. And notice how Boston College overlaps with Jesuit order. Boston College 144 and 54 like Jesuit order. You might recall Interstate 85 burned down and they blamed it on a crackhead. Right after that Super Bowl, National Football League's also another big fat 85. Like Jesus Somnum Salvator. But yeah, something that stands out to me is there's only 27 Jesuit universities remaining in the U.S., and you could say maybe 28 because there's an affiliated historically black college with the Jesuits in Louisiana. But there's really, and by the way, at the height, there were 54 Jesuit universities in the U.S. Like Jesuit Order is 54, and so is John Carroll, who established the first one, Georgetown at age 54. But one of the major Jesuit hubs in the U.S. is Seattle. Seattle University is a Jesuit school. Remember on the last day of the Jesuit Ignatian year, Bill Russell died, Jesuit educated. Well, actually, I'm actually confusing him with Elgin Baylor, who was also Jesuit educated and died in a major Jesuit ritual right before Gonzaga, the other Jesuit university in Washington State, Aloysius de Gonzaga, 201. Right before Gonzaga lost to Baylor. Elgin Baylor died at 86. Baylor won with 86 points. But yeah, on the last day of the Jesuit Ignatian year, that was right after the Warriors beat Boston. Bill Russell, who went to the Jesuit University, San Francisco University, and played for the Celtics. He just happened to die right after that finals on the last day of the Jesuit Ignatian year. Anyway, coming back to the Seattle piece. Seattle's the 206 area code. One of the front runners in the NBA this year. Keep in mind, it's the 79th NBA season, and the Seattle Sonics won the championship in 79. They're now the Oklahoma City Thunder. You know, this just stands out to me that Pope Francis is dead 206 days after the anniversary of the church recognizing the Jesuits, the Seattle area code at 88, and that's the old Thunder number. And by the way, if you guys missed what they did up here in the Pacific Northwest, that's where I live. On the 85th day of the year, go back and look at what the headlines were in the Pacific Northwest. The weather in the Pacific Northwest from Portland to Seattle, by the way, the women's team in Seattle is the Storm. On the 85th day of the year, they said the weather was like Oklahoma. Tornado warnings, crazy lightning and thunder. They compared the weather here to Oklahoma when the Seattle Sonics went to become the Oklahoma City Thunder. We had a storm like Oklahoma. And it's a reminder that the first ever act of weather warfare was admitted to on the Jesuit Order's birthday. And notice how weather control and the Jesuit Order overlap. And don't forget that Lyndon Johnson, he said way back when at Holy Cross, who controls the weather controls the world. He said it in other places as well. Holy Cross is a Jesuit university. He also spoke at Holy Cross 201 days after JFK died when he said that. And don't forget, JFK gave the speech about the future of weather control September 25th, 1961. And people don't know about that either. They don't know about this Kabbalistic code that goes on every day. They don't know about weather control. They don't know about the founders warning about how the Jesuits birthed the nation. You look at why they keep the southern border open, it's because they want to funnel Catholics into the country. Again, the Jesuits run this nation. They run the world. They have installed their puppets everywhere. And as I pointed out before, when their servants' time is up, they go out by the code too. But yeah, let this be one more definitive proof that the Jesuits are behind the Church of Satan. Jorge Mario Bergoglio dead on the 111th day of the year, and Jorge Mario Bergoglio's last day of mourning will be on the 59th birthday of the Church of Satan in the 122 city, San Francisco, where it was established. And actually, they have moved their headquarters to Hell's Kitchen in New York. That's Trump's stomping grounds. But anyway, I got to wrap this up because I got to help out Mom with Sweet Girl. I wasn't planning on doing a video this morning. Normally, I'm doing the child care duties. So thank you again to everyone who hits the like and the share. Thank you to everyone who supports the work. Yeah, I hope we wake up a few more people. And by the way, for anyone out there still watching today who abandoned the Patreon last night, I lost over 100 members on Patreon last night after last night's stream. Again, it just goes to show there's a lot of religious people who follow me and they don't like to hear me rag on religion. Again, you guys, it's quite pathetic. You guys are more invested in lies and superstition than somebody who's been here every day for 12 years bringing nonstop truths that could actually help the world. You'd rather give your money to Santa Claus and people who lie to you every day. It really is pathetic. Anytime I go on a hard rant on religion, there's consequences for the financial support. I know that, and I do it anyway, because this is a truth channel first and foremost, but it is also a channel that does need way more financial support, because this message needs to be out in front of everybody's face. You know, yours truly has been dropping nothing but truth bombs for going on 12 years that do have the power to change the world, and this world needs to change, because it's run by some very evil people who dress up in costumes and pretend to be your friends, from the Pope to the puppet presidents, etc., etc. These people are all wicked. They all need to be taken off their thrones, and we need to stop getting on our knees for them and sending them our money and giving them our energy. It all needs to be done with. Authority is a problem. We worship authority way too much because we're indoctrinated into authority and belief systems. It all needs to end. And a lot of people cannot accept my message because it goes against their indoctrination, which is what I'm trying to break you out of. So anyway, we'll leave it there for now. And until next time, Truth Seeker.